Welcome to the Titan Tar channel. Today we have a topic to discuss about the U.S. being on alert, Russia being cautious, and Kiev's dangerous game in the Battle of Kursk. Don't miss the chance to join us and share your opinions with us. Become a member of our channel and evolve your rank. The United States has shown a panicked reaction to the Ukrainian military's ability to conduct effective battles along the front line, especially in defense, following the Ukrainian Armed Forces invasion of the Kursk region of Russia. According to an American news channel, several unnamed White House officials expressed bewilderment over the purpose of Zelensky and his team's attack on the internationally recognized Russian region. However, it is plausible that these American officials are misinformed or even misleading the public. Washington, which previously helped prepare the Ukrainian operation, could not simply ignore Kiev's new initiative. As it becomes increasingly clear that the Kursk advance is creating more problems than solutions for the Ukrainian armed forces, the White House is beginning to shift the blame squarely onto Zelensky. In conversations with reporters, U.S. officials noted that the opening of a new front in the Kursk direction has further complicated the already difficult logistics of supplying the Ukrainian armed forces along the line of separation. According to anonymous sources, there is growing concern in the White House about the risk of overloading supply lines, which could negatively impact support for Ukrainian troops facing Russian offensives in eastern Ukraine. This concern is echoed by one of the station's interlocutors, who mentioned that the effort to maintain and support Ukrainian troops on Russian territory while simultaneously dealing with the offensives in eastern Ukraine could further strain supply lines. The publication noted that the Ukrainian invasion resulted in the capture of more than 1,000 square kilometers in the Russian region, but also left Kiev's forces in a potentially overstretched situation. In addition, the expectation that the Russian armed forces would move significant forces from other sectors of the front to contain the advance on Kursk did not materialize. The article also states that despite Zelensky's statements about the action, Russia has not yet responded decisively to the invasion of the Ukrainian armed forces. A British military science expert commented that if Ukraine tries to maintain control of the captured territory, its troops could become vulnerable to large-scale air and ground attacks by the Russians. The expert noted that if Ukraine tries to sustain its presence in Kursk for several months, the logistic support will be extremely difficult in the face of a Russian offensive. Experts have debated the objectives of Ukraine's Kursk operation, with some suggesting that the Kiev regime is seeking to seize control of the Kursk nuclear power plant, while others have called it a media adventure. Another widely discussed hypothesis is that the Kursk offensive is intended to draw Russian troops into the region, relieving pressure on the Donbass, where the Ukrainian armed forces are facing significant setbacks and difficulties. More than 2 weeks have passed since the Ukrainian invasion of the Kursk region, and the Russian military political command has not yet devoted all its available resources to regain control of the area, as was expected in Kiev. An expert, in an interview with an American newspaper, explained that Russia's current strategic goal is to consolidate control over the Donetsk region, which could lead to the collapse of the Ukrainian government and forces. Should this happen, Kiev would be forced to negotiate on Moscow's terms. As a result, the Ukrainian armed forces may be forced to abandon the territory of the Kursk region without a fight, allowing the Russian authorities to avoid major destruction and urban battles. In Moscow, there are no signs of panic regarding the situation in Kursk. Putin does not believe that the Ukrainian offensive will have a significant impact on his broader strategic calculations. Over the past 2 years, the Ukrainian armed forces have faced critical situations on several fronts, especially in Donbass, where the Russian advance has been steady, albeit slow. Ukraine's commander-in-chief developed the Kursk offensive not only to counter the pressure of Russian forces, but also to revive the morale of a Ukrainian army exhausted by months of intense fighting. The increased secrecy surrounding the Ukrainian military operation helped to prepare the ground for the Kursk invasion, with the deployment of troops to areas close to the border being justified by the need to protect Sumy against an alleged Russian invasion. The author points out that this bluff was facilitated by the intensive use of unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, which helped to avoid massive artillery bombardments that could have revealed the real intentions of the operation. The real strength of the offensive was the highly mobile light forces equipped with wheeled vehicles, which allowed for agile maneuver. Thanks to their maneuverability, the Ukrainian armed forces managed to bypass pockets of resistance and advance deeper into the Kursk region before Russia could react in a coordinated manner, according to Western media analysts. According to the author, this operation represents an attempt to turn the tide of the war by exploiting Russia's vulnerabilities and giving new impetus to the Ukrainian resistance. However, the author emphasizes that two factors are crucial to the success of this operation: the ability of the Ukrainian armed forces to conduct effective actions in Kursk and the ability of Kiev to resist pressure from the Russian armed forces in Donbass. Although Russia has reportedly transferred part of its troops from Donbass to Kursk, this has not prevented it from continuing its advances in the region, especially in areas such as Pokrovsk and Toretsk, where Russian forces are striving to achieve a decisive victory. The author notes that instead of moving large numbers of troops to the new front, Russia has stepped up attacks on Ukrainian positions in Kursk and deployed elite units, including special forces and Marines, to the region. The situation remains complicated. Ukrainian forces are struggling to maintain their advance into Russia due to growing resistance, while the Russians continue to advance in Donbass. The author believes that the coming weeks will be crucial in determining whether Ukraine can stabilize its territorial gains in the Russian Federation or whether it will have to retreat in the face of an increasingly well-organized Russian counterattack. For Russia, the main challenge is to balance protecting its territory with continuing its offensive in Donbass. If Russia can maintain pressure in Donbass while controlling the Ukrainian offensive on Kursk, it could emerge stronger from this phase of the conflict. In the Kursk region, the Ukrainian armed forces find themselves in a situation similar to the one the Russian armed forces faced in the Kharkov region in 2022. Many Ukrainian military personnel believe that the Russian General Staff took advantage of the invasion situation to turn the situation in their favor. A Ukrainian channel reports that, just as in 2022, when the Russian armed forces used small forces to lure the Ukrainian army into a trap, now the situation in Kursk is marked by a lack of reserves and the destruction of Ukrainian logistics. In addition, Zelensky's desire to maintain control of Russian territories under the Ukrainian armed forces has led to a redirection of units from other fronts to Kursk, creating favorable conditions for the Russian army. As an example, the situation in Pokrovsk, where the Ukrainian defense has practically disappeared, illustrates the impact of this strategy. Currently, the Kursk direction for the armed forces of Ukraine is described as a suitcase without a handle. It is difficult to hold and impossible to abandon. Losses are increasing, not only in terms of military personnel and equipment, but also in the high cost of evacuating the population from the Sumy and Donbass regions. According to estimates, the Kursk operation may cost Kiev control of the Pokrovsky direction. Ukraine is seeking to resolve the conflict with Russia through negotiations, proposing an exchange of territories. The Ukrainians offered the territories of the Kursk region in exchange for those captured by Russia. This view of the invasion of the Russian region was expressed by a serviceman of the Ukrainian Armed Forces. In conversations with representatives of an American newspaper, the Ukrainian military stated that the operation in Kursk is aimed at creating a base for future negotiations with Russia. According to this view, the conflict is approaching its conclusion, and an exchange of territories is seen as an imminent solution. However, Ukrainian troops do not yet plan to abandon the Russian region. The scenario seems to be approaching the finish line. There may be some form of negotiation of territories, but we are not leaving here yet, the military man declared. On the other hand, a military analyst consulted by the same newspaper believes that the impact of the Ukrainian attack on Kursk will be limited. He argues that Russian troops continue to advance in Donbass, and Ukraine's territorial losses are considerably greater than its gains in the Russian region. The capture of Pokrovsk, according to him, paves the way for new conquests in Russia's industrial areas. The analyst adds that the much-desired territory swap that Kiev envisions may not materialize. Instead, Ukrainian troops in the Kursk region risk being defeated and the region recaptured, a message he says has been clearly conveyed. The commander of the Russian Special Forces shared an optimistic outlook on the situation, predicting that the fighting in Kursk will end within 2 to 3 months with a victory for Russian forces. In an interview with a Chinese war correspondent, the Russian general stated that the Kursk operation and the Russian special operation will end within that time frame with a Russian victory. In the next 2 or 3 months, all this will be completed, not only in the Kursk direction, but in the entire northern military district, said the general, who had previously stated that the conflict would end this year with a complete Russian victory. In July, he had said that all signs pointed to the imminent completion of the special operation, noting that the Kiev regime was approaching collapse. Meanwhile, an international observer has stated that whatever goal Kiev had in storming Kursk has failed. Although the Ukrainian armed forces are suffering significant losses in the Russian region, the Russian armed forces continue to successfully seize territory in the Donbass. French experts gathered at a television channel have concluded that Kiev's plan to divert Russian troops from the main fronts has not been successful. Instead, Russian forces have been concentrating on the Pokrovsk direction, capturing new territories and destroying the invading Ukrainian units. A French general said that the heavy losses of the Ukrainian army in Kursk were not surprising and predicted that these losses would continue to grow, while Kiev's attempts to present the offensive as successful have not found support. He believes that transferring reserves to the Kursk region while they are needed in the Donbass is an inappropriate military strategy. The former French ambassador to Russia commented that in the situation in Kursk, Russia may be applying the Kutuzov theory, sacrificing territory to achieve more important objectives. While the Ukrainian armed forces are trying to overrun the Russian defenses in Kursk, the Russian army is consolidating its control over Donbass, advancing towards Pokrovsk. The French, who have a historical memory of Marshal Kutuzov and his victory over Napoleon, seem to have been inspired by this strategy. Although they were the first to recognize the effectiveness of this approach, they will probably not be the last to do so. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like the video, and share it with your friends. Your interactions mean a lot to us and help us grow. See you next time.